Is this too cliche? Since the release of the Switch 2, we've gotten new games, new releases, new zzz on all of Nintendo's most popular franchises, according to Wikipedia. We got a brand new Mario Kart, an entire Mario Galaxy renaissance. We got Pokemon Legends ZA, another Zelda Warriors spin-off that nobody asked for. We've got a 3D DK to hold 3D Mario hostage for who knows how long. Kirby DLC, Kirby Air Riders, Metroid Prime 4, and even Splatoon, a Splatoon spin-off. That's crazy. That's weird. Sorry, Pikmin and Xenoblade, you're not cool enough to sit at the grown-up table, apparently. The gang is all here, with one exception, that Nintendo has not said a peep about. You know what it is. Come on, say it with me. Animal Crossing. Oh. I must have missed one. Hold on. Nope, that checks out. Well, there goes my hook. Smash Brothers is over as we know it. Or at least it's about to change. Or it should change? Look. The title's kind of clickbait, I'm not going to lie to you, but I really do think the series might never look the same again. And I will be cashing in my clout when all my predictions come true because I know all things. Source? Just trust me, bro, of the Super Smash variety. In this video, I'm going to talk about the history of the design philosophy of Smash Bros. And how it's changed over time and why that brings us to a crossroads today. Now, you might be wondering, Mr. Fringehead, if Smash Bros. Is going to randomly change forever, why now? What special rumblings do you think you're onto that would facilitate a shift from the status quo? For Nintendo's safest console yet, no less, why should I trust you when you're not even part of the mainstream? Unconventional, peripheral, or extreme, well, my well-spoken, attractive friend. The answer is that Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is objectively the best game in the series. But to understand why, first we have to take a detour and talk about developer intention, and why that's probably the only good lens we have to critique and analyze games, and why it doesn't really make any sense at all to think of games in terms of objectivity. As is the case with all art, it's the experience of playing a game itself. Can you quit? Stop. As is the case with all art, it's the experience of playing a game itself that's valuable, and that can be deemed as good or bad. An experience is inherently subjective. Sure, maybe you could take an objective measure of a game's quality if you had every single person on Earth play a game and then rank it against every single other game. But like, what would that give you? That'd give you like a watered down mass appeal thing that no one actually agreed with anyway. Speaking pragmatically, what would be the point of that? Humbug, I say. Objectivity can't exist in a vacuum. You have to define a box, a set of limitations before speaking of anything objective. I can say Ultimate is the best Smash, and you would rightfully ask, according to what law of nature? That's just your opinion, you absolute freaking dummy. Every developer worth their salt has a goal in mind, an experience in mind, a target audience, which is why analyzing games by developer intention is a much better approach than just saying, this game sucks, here's all this stuff I hated about it, 7 out of 10. So why do I say Smash Ultimate is the best? Let me take you on a journey to a wonderland, a magical place, faraway land called the Horse's Mouth. Sakurai actually has a series on his YouTube channel talking about his thoughts during the development of all his games. Anyway, here's what he says about Smash. His original vision for Smash 64 was to reimagine fighting game combos by moving away from the one-sided, unskippable cutscenes that they were becoming towards something more intuitive, interactive, and improvised. See what I did there? The 3 eyes of Smash Bros. The 3 soccer eyes, if you will. Sakurai has consistently prioritized making his games newcomer-friendly, and that's why he made a brand new, more intuitive control scheme for his silly new fighting game. He designed more interactive gameplay by making it to be more neutral-based, and by adding the directional influence mechanic, aka DI, with which a player can break combos by altering their knockback angle. And what's that you say? Knockback angles are variable due to a player's influence? That sounds like a way to add some improvised gameplay, don't you think? The final also stage variety was a new innovation for that. He also says something at the end that'll be important later in the video, which is this. This philosophy of playing what you want, how you want, was to an extent established here in the Verse Smash title. Oh, also the 4-player free-for-all thing was in the pitch. I don't really know how that relates to the rest of the video, but it feels like a weird thing to not mention, especially since I'm biased towards thinking of the game in terms of 1v1s. For Melee, his goal was to take Smash 64 and make it better. Sakurai acknowledges that Melee's fast pace was good for competitors and spectators, but also made the game less accessible. Now, it may come as a surprise to you that Brawl's anti-competitive design wasn't just because, Smash Bros. Is supposed to be for casuals, and this is too fast, Melee is the wrong direction. That is part of it. Remember that the Wii itself was explicitly marketed towards a more casual audience, which he says affected his decision-making. He also says that it was largely to account for the limitations of the online functionality of the time, although he does say that he doesn't think online and Smash Bros. Are a very good fit for each other. His reasoning is essentially that online play attracts sweats and can cause people to lose confidence, which by extension causes people to lose the joy of playing the game. Can relate. In Smash 4, again, the slow knockback and overall pace wasn't just for accessibility. He says that many of these decisions were made for clarity's sake on the 3DS's small screen, the parameters of which were carried over to the Wii U version. It's notable to mention that despite Smash 4 having its own limitations, it's still faster than Brawl except Meta Knight, now that the net play is a little less awful. And finally, the moment you've all been waiting for, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. He really doesn't say much about the gameplay here. Yeah, it really seems like bringing back all the characters really was his main idea going into the project, although he did leave me with something interesting. Sakurai mentions that Smash has become a household name and therefore has a lot more veterans than ever before. So, he said that they tried to strike a balance to satisfy both sides, the casuals and the sweats, which we can clearly see given the speed of the game and competitive balance until DLC, as well as the massive sales numbers and overall just well-belovedness by everyone. And there you have it, the complete history of an evolving developer intention of Super Smash Bros. The franchise. Yeah, I'm still trying to explain why Ultimate is the best, by the way, just in case you forgot. And now we have all the facts, which I will now proceed to inadvertently twist and manipulate to extract out a biased version of the developer intention of the Super Smash Bros. Franchise for the Nintendo family of systems. Let's rewind to that quote from before. This philosophy of playing what you want, how you want, was to an extent established here in the first Smash title. He says this about Smash 64 in a way that sort of implied that it was accidental then, but a deliberate part of the philosophy now. This is important because it's representative of the fact that Sakurai has made an active effort to design the game not only for casual players like the target audience, but also to accommodate the competitive players. This has been the case at least since Smash 4 and definitely in Ultimate. I think it's fair to say that the demographic we see in Smash now, it's pretty much what the player base has settled into, given because of how much of a hit Ultimate was. And because the needs of the audience have changed, the pace has also increased to something that casuals and even Melee players seem to find palatable. Not to mention the technology has caught up to the limitations of online play, so the game doesn't have to slow down anymore to account for it. And I said the technology has caught up, not that they elected to use it. My point is we're a long ways from Brawl Internet, and I think we can see what that freedom does to the game. It speeds it up, because it seems like that's what people want. I am people. Speaking of Brawl, I feel like that was a big philosophy reboot for Sakurai. Brawl cut ties with a lot of the original thinking of 64 and Melee, as well as a lot of the thinking. And in the ashes of Brawl, Smash 4 totally redesigned the feel of combos and edgeguarding. I think this is because getting edgeguarded over and over reduces the interaction, broadly speaking, and mechanics like reverse angles and complex combos hurt the game's intuitiveness, which is why they were replaced with a more simple and consistent combo system, which strengthens the focus on neutral and, almost by definition, increases the interactivity. See, I'm bringing back the eyes again. You remember the eyes? Don't forget the eyes. They are watching you. But for all the advancements Smash 4 made, it's infamously the most bland, forgettable Smash game ever made. The pacing was sluggish, the defensive options were too strong, and overall the game felt pretty stiff and unsatisfying to play. Not to mention the impressive lack of side content in the year of our Lord 2014.
Smash Run was worse than Smash Tour.
Did you hear that? It kind of sounds like someone said something based and true. It's a shame people are allergic to objective facts. Ultimate actually managed to iron out a lot of the pain points from Smash 4's design. The pacing, the offense, and here's something not many people talk about. Here's Kat. She decided to join in. And who am I to deny my girl fame to my audience of 12? Something people don't talk about enough is that Smash Ultimate is the most buttery smooth plat fighter I think I've ever played in my life. Yeah, the buffer system can be obnoxious and incomprehensible, like I'm holding shield while landing with a neutral stick. Of course I want a shield. Why? In what universe would someone do that when they wanted to roll? Who lands with roll? The input sequences and actions per minute they're just right. Oh, hello. The movement feels free but fair. You're never stuck in end lag for too long. Even the advanced stuff like instant back airs feels so nice to pull off. Not to mention the music, the stages, the roster with literally everything in it. Frankly, I think it's too much as a random main myself. But who could stay mad at that face? Aww. And the side content was... well, it was okay. Personally, I don't really think you can make very good side content for a fighting game. That's just not what it's designed for, you know? Now, there's one catch that may have been eating away at you this whole time, and that's that the online experience utterly sucks. The top tiers and DLC ruin the game. And I agree. However, those aren't inherent to the game mechanics themselves. That's probably a deeper underlying issue rooted in Nintendo itself. So I don't think making a new game is going to fix any of that. But those things could be fixed, like even retroactively. They could even be fixed by just playing in person and banning characters. No one said you had to like the fix, but I speak only the truth. I really do believe that Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is the purest expression of Sakurai's vision for the developed community of players. And that means developer intention achieved. So what next? It would be a shame to let Ultimate die by replacing it with a game that probably won't live up to it. Ultimate was the breakthrough formula that had finally emerged from the last 2 decades of experimentation and growth. Now let me get this out of the way. There will be another Smash game. I know Sakurai has said that he has made this game as if it were going to be the last. He says that every time. Nintendo comes a-knocking and he says to Sakurai, "Make more Smash Bros." And he says, "Yes, honey." But even if he were to get run over by a wheelie bike in a tragic workplace-related accident, Smash would go on. They'd just hire a new director because the Smash IP rights don't belong to Sakurai or his company. They're fully owned by Nintendo. Nintendo loves money, and it's too darn profitable to not make Smash Brother. Rest assured, there will be more on the way. And so far, a new Smash game has always meant the imminent death of the previous one. When they get all old and crusty, Nintendo doesn't want to play with them anymore. Straight into the garbage. But I think Ultimate is just too valuable to be thrown away like that. It's such a great game. But if they're going to continue with the same generalist philosophy, then they're going to end up making basically the same game over and over and over again. Ultimate is already what it needs to be. It's already what Smash Bros. Has been trying to be. But new is the same thing as better. I am a corporate machine forged from the collective delusions of executives and investors. More slop for us, please. Not that Smash Bros. Is slop. I love Smash Bros. But if they don't make a game following the for everyone philosophy, the fans that get left behind aren't going to be happy. So what is the solution? Continue to support Ultimate. Keep the servers up indefinitely. Keep selling the game. Dare I even say, drop an occasional update, maybe fix the internet, the online, and the balance. I'm just saying. Ultimate is a finished product. If they just did the bare minimum to keep the game alive, they would have their generalist for everyone Smash game for people to fall back on. And while they're at it, Melee is still very popular and could easily be brought back as an official competitive game. After all, why not? They're not using it. That's how the game is played. Since Ultimate and Smash 6 would still be supported, there's no reason why Melee would have to be brought back as a party game first. That niche would be filled. If only there was infrastructure to support the previous games, Smash 6, 7, 8, could all serve different niches. We've reached the end of the road with our current formula. My cat's about to And it's time to move on. It's time to just let Smash Bros. Branch out, because I have a feeling that's what it's going to do anyway. Might as well do it with intention. So what would a new direction look like? Well, remember those improvised combos that kind of got lost in Brawl? Maybe we could start back up on that path. After all, that's what Rivals of Aether did, and that game's just got a sequel. You know how characters in Ultimate are increasingly designed to represent their games instead of being good platfighter characters? I mean, that's a direction in and of itself. I think it makes the game more complicated, less intuitive, but also more improvisational, more interesting, potentially. It's a different thing, but you can lean into that. What if they reimagine the genre into something totally unheard of, for old time's sake? With the Switch 2 having native compatibility with the most popular Smash game of all time, now is exactly the right moment to make a bold move. And because of that aspect of the Switch 2, maybe it's even time to switch to a different director. Gasp. Like I said, I believe Ultimate has reached a logical conclusion of Sakurai's particular approach to platfighters, so maybe a new director would have a different vision, and that's exactly what we need. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This next part of the video is basically just my own wish fulfillment fantasy. You know those people who lick Sakurai's boots and act like he's some super genius that can do nothing wrong? Yeah, I'm one of those people, I admit it. I just really jive with his approach to game design. In his Melee video, he says, "The concepts of my games are usually very logical in nature. In most cases, there's a problem to solve, and I design the game to solve it." Like, me too, twin! Kisses you on the mouth. He also said most creative works, not just games, have to do what they can to set themselves apart from the crowd, which sounds obvious, but if you look at his body of works, you can really see that this is a fundamental part of how he designs games. Kirby, Smash Bros., Kirby Air Ride, Kid Icarus Uprising, one of my favorite games ever, by the way. All completely reimagined entire genres, and excellently, might I add. And who could forget Meteos? My point is, I would love to go on a PNG dinner date with Daddy Sakurai-chan, and I think his skill set would be totally wasted on making Smash Bros. For the rest of his career. It's finished. You did it. You laid the groundwork, and now you can safely pass the torch. I'd love to see more Kid Icarus, but really I just want to see him continue to express his range as a director. I'm happy to see Kirby Air Ride the Squeakquel, but I'd be even happier to see a brand new Sakurai original, which we haven't seen since Kid Icarus, really. Even though he didn't come up with that IP, the concepts were very original. Even though he's been an exceptional director for Smash, it doesn't need him anymore. And we'd be losing so much if he spent another minute of his limited career directing Smash Bros. The future of Smash, for all the reasons listed, is uncertain. But what will Nintendo actually do? What is my prediction given the information in this video? The Switch 2 is still in its first year, and boy oh boy would Smash 6 sell consoles. If we look at the timeline, there's a lot of interesting data to go off. From planning to release, Smash Ultimate took 3 years to develop and came out early in the Switch 1's life, which makes sense because, again, it's a hugely popular franchise that a lot of people would purchase a console for. It's a system seller. So it would make sense to do that again. This time we got a new Mario Kart as a launch title, which is probably the single best franchise in Nintendo's arsenal to move systems off of store shelves. So they can afford to wait until the next big hitter, I guess. It's a bit strange though, because we have an unusually complete timeline of Sakurai's work since 2015, which is when Ultimate began development. Then in 2018, the game came out, and then he continued to do DLC until 2022. And it was at that point that he received a request to make a game, which we now know was Kirby Air Riders. But for whatever reason, he didn't have a team assembled yet. So in the downtime, he made the YouTube channel. Kirby Air Riders will come out this year in 2025. Another 3 years, one dev cycle, which means he wouldn't have had time to work on Smash 6, would he? If he's making Smash 6, he's only just starting now, making the hypothetical release date around 2028. Still kind of early in the Switch 2's life, but kind of getting late. I mean, it's not unthinkable, but wouldn't it be weird to wait a full dev cycle before even starting on one of Nintendo's biggest cash cow games ever? Remember that the last time he worked on a game other than Smash was Kid Icarus, and that was only feasible because Brawl was still in an era where continual updates and DLC wasn't a thing. When Brawl came out in 2008, it was out, leaving another almost 5 years until the Wii U even came out. He had plenty of time to make his own game, but this time is different. Like, There's technically still plenty of time to make Smash 6, but wouldn't that be weird? Wouldn't that be weird for them to not even start until after the system comes out? Sakurai commented that development of Ultimate actually went very smoothly because they were able to keep the same team from Bandai Namco. So it would lead one to think that this development team is very experienced making modern Smash, and perhaps very capable of carrying on the legacy independently. And with Smash Ultimate being natively supported on the Switch 2 and being so darn popular and favorable that people would probably buy the next game even if it wasn't the best. Like I said before, now is the time to take a big risk like that. Sakurai broke from Kirby, didn't he? So why not Smash? To Nintendo, Bandai Namco and Sora Limited, Sakurai's company, are both external dev teams. I think there's a lot of supporting evidence to suggest that Smash Bros. Is about to undergo a transformation. And as something of a game developer myself, this is what I want to see. I love innovation. I love to see how genres evolve and specialize. And I think there's definitely a world where all these arguments add up to something special and exciting. But as I come to the end of this script, I'm starting to realize that this is what I want. But is this really what Nintendo would want? I was never talking about the future of Smash, was I? This whole video is probably just my subconscious excuse to talk about what I think would be interesting to see. I really just want more Kid Icarus and more Sakurai originals, please. I love Smash games more than most, don't get me wrong, but to me it's not worth sacrificing the other games that he could be making right now. Nintendo is a business. They want whatever gives them the best chance to make a lot of money as safely as possible. And there will come a time when Sakurai retires and Nintendo's forced to switch things up, whether they like it or not. And I think that time might even be upon us, but it's impossible to say. My understanding is that really educating the next generation of developers and being a general good influence on the industry is what's most important to Sakurai. And I'm always afraid that he's already decided to retire, and that the current project will be his last. So the orb store was actually out of orbs to ponder, so they had to sell me the next best thing, and I got a great deal on it. Behold! The Sakurai. This magical item is capable of allowing the user to see the future, but only through the eyes of Masahiro Sakurai himself. Let us begin the ritual. It's working, I can feel it. Sakurai has a brother, a twin brother, and he's escaping from prison. And his name is Masa Villain Sakurai. Oh gosh, he destroys the world by teaming up with Kazuya Mishima. Oh gosh, it's too much. I'm too deep. I gotta pull out. I will never recover from the horrors and post-traumatic stress disorder of which I have contracted from this experience. Remember, kids, buying strange orbs from strange orb dealers is not cool. Now, if you do want to see beyond the universal veil doing mushrooms, that's cool. Nevertheless, I have to go back in. I have to know the truth. Come on, focus, sarcastic. I can see it. I'm becoming a medium, so I don't have to remember all these lines while I'm blind. The events foretold shall come to pass. Smash Brothers shall undergo a metamorphosis, but not so fast. Until the time Nintendo trusts that Sakurai shall retire from game development, the game shall remain as is. Smash 6 will come out in 2028, directed by Masahiro Sakurai. And it will lean into the kooky design philosophy of Smash Ultimate's DLC characters. Its roster shall be reduced, and the tight design of Ultimate shall be loosened. The online and side content will be better than before. Nintendo will choose the safest option they can, and Sakurai just isn't the type to refuse a request when he is the safest option.